this is my little tractor, and it's a bit of a Frankenstein's monster, really. Originally, it was what was known as a Nickerson Turfmaster. It started life a bit more like that one over there. So it was a triple cylinder mower. There are the 3 cylinders. So it'd have had one out each side that folded down, and then one on the back. So it was for sort of groundskeeping, cricket pitches, that kind of thing. So I got mine, not like that one, but it had been modified already. So someone had tried to make it look more like a classic tractor. So they put the bigger wheels on the back, made a hideous attempt at a front axle. So that was some years ago, and I'll put some pictures or some footage in here now of what it was like then. I don't keep the tractor just for fun. It does have a job to do, which is to pull a mower around, because I've got an acre and a half here that needs mowing. So I bought a mower that got turned into a trail mower that I can I tow behind this tractor, and I'll put a bit of video in there so you can see basics of how that works. So that is this tractor's main job. But yeah, basically it's got an American Kohler single cylinder 14 horsepower engine that you can just see beneath there. I'll just take the bonnet off so you can see a bit better. Right, there's the engine. Yeah, it's a Kohler K321S for anyone who's interested. So that engine hails from, I think this one is 1984. So over the years that I've had it, I've made various modifications. So I rebuilt that engine completely, about 3 years ago, and it's been great ever since. It's lovely. It's slow revving, quite torquey, just great for bimbling around on this thing. It's ideally sized for this tractor. So that runs a double belt drive, so that transmits power down to a cross shaft that you can just about see in there, which then has a tooth sprocket on it for a chain sprocket, which normally would have come straight up across the middle here between your legs, but that was a real pain and I can't stand that. So I basically put 2 more lay shafts in underneath the floor and another chain drive between them to effectively give me a flat floor, because I like things to be convenient and easy to use. But yeah, so the chain drive comes up through here, up through my little makeshift chain guard, through a three speed and reverse gearbox, and then into the reduction unit. So in this top unit here is just a simple chain reduction. The second chain reduction in here comes down to a differential, which actually rides on a main shaft that goes through the middle here. So what happens is that this left hand wheel is rigidly fixed to a shaft that runs all the way through. So what the shaft does, the wheel does. This side, the wheel is bolted to a hub which is bushed onto the shaft, so it can spin freely. So those two spin independently, and between the two is a planetary differential unit, which actually is quite clever in its design. So it's the crown wheel is a chain sprocket which takes chain from a little pinion sprocket above, but on that crown wheel, which is like a plate, you've got 3 pins sticking out, onto which you've got your planet gears around 2 sun gears, which are then respectively attached to one to the shaft to transmit power to the left hand wheel, and one to the hub to transmit power to the right hand wheel. It's quite clever. It's only about that wide, the whole diff, so it's nice and compact. So I thought, how can I make this thing more usable? I added an external hydraulic system to it, so you can see the spool valve there with the 2 outlets. So I'll start at the top and work down. So what I did was added a Galtech hydraulic pump. So that's driven off a synchronous tooth belt, like a cam belt, from the crankshaft of the tractor. So whenever the engine's running, the pump's running. So that's what you call an open center hydraulic system. So that the hydraulic fluid is constantly circulating. So what happens here, for those that don't know how hydraulics work, is that the pressurized fluid, which actually isn't pressurized until you use it, or there'll be some pressure there, but not a massive amount, gets circulated, comes in through this pipe and out through that pipe, and just goes round and round in a loop all the time until you work this lever. So you'll have an implement or something with a hydraulic ram or a motor on it plugged into these two attachments. Quick release couplings is their proper name, I think. And when you work this lever up and down here, so it goes up and down, you basically divert the flow, so the flow no longer goes through here out to the tank. So if you pull the lever one way, fluid will come out of this top fitting and be allowed to flow back into this bottom one and out the hose. And then if you move the lever the other way, fluid will come out the bottom fitting and be allowed to flow back into the top one like that. The plan I had when I did this was to do exactly what I did, and modify the mower to have a hydraulic offset on it. So it's got a hydraulic ram on the mower. I'll put some pictures in now. So it's not a necessity, but it transforms the use of that mower, because it means you don't have to drive on the grass you're about to cut, so it gives you a better finish. But also, if you're cutting under low bushes and trees and things like that, you can send the mower in sort of 5 feet further in than what you have to get on the tractor. So it's actually really useful. Oh, and this is the reservoir, the tank. You can just see under there the aluminium tank, which holds the fluid. So you can just see the return line coming back in the top here, and this is a return line filter. This little gauge here that measures the pressure of the return line filter, which enables you to keep an eye on how much your filter is blocking. So obviously, the more the filter is blocked, the more back pressure you'll get in your return line. Yeah, so that's the hydraulic system. What else have I done to it? Well, since I bought the thing, you can see the tractor's got a number plate on it, so I had it road registered, which actually was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. And that first moment of driving it out onto the road was just felt so weird and so illegal, but it totally wasn't. I was insured, and it was registered. It was great. So yeah, that was another thing I did. The most major thing that I've just done, although it's not quite complete, is the new front axle. So the old front axle, I think, is over here. Yeah. So it's upside down, but that was the old front axle, and it's just nasty. And I hated it ever since I had the thing. So I thought I can do much better than that. So spent quite a while designing the thing on CAD. Doing quite a bit of research into various steering geometry, appropriate steering geometry angles. And as I don't know if you can make out on there, but you can see that the tractor's got sort of appropriate amount of positive camber on the front wheels. I'll show you in steer, so you can see what happens to the wheels. So that's the axle. I've just relocated the fuel tank. The fuel tank was over here, and this area is getting quite cluttered, and it made it difficult anytime you wanted to do any work on the carb or take the air filter off, anything like that. It was difficult, so I thought I'd declutter, get the fuel tank up out of the way. So just made this new bracket here, and that's sat on there nicely. You can just see a little ball joint there. I added a gas strut to the bonnet as well, because it's quite heavy, that bonnet, and not that that's a particular problem, but when it's up in the air, especially if it's windy, it can catch you out and blow shut, which is not safe at all.
I'm also in the process of converting the engine to an electronic management system that will use an ECU to control fuel injection and ignition. You can see I've fitted a variable reluctance crank sensor here with a 36-1 toothed wheel to give engine speed and positional reference to the ECU, and a temperature sender for the oil, because this is an air-cooled engine. It doesn't have a coolant circuit to measure the temperature of, so in this case we'll use the oil. The system will also have a wideband lambda sensor in the exhaust, for which there's already a provision in the form of a boss that you can see here. As well as doing the engine management conversion, I've previously measured up this cylinder head and modelled in CAD an aluminium billet replacement for it, which in terms of its geometry is very similar to this head, the main difference being that it will have provision for 2 spark plugs. So this original coil will be replaced with a wasted spark type twin plug coil. I've also just made this new dash panel because the previous one wasn't very nicely made, and it meant that the bonnet sloped downwards towards the steering wheel, which I didn't like, so this one is taller and allows the bonnet to sit horizontally. For the last couple of years, the tractor's battery has been a relatively big lead acid car battery that I had sticking out the front in a homemade battery tray to make it look something like a weight block on an old tractor. But this battery was big and heavy, and I didn't really like the look of it stuck out the front, so I've just replaced it with this lovely little lithium ion battery, which is, as you can see, is tiny and really weighs nothing. It almost feels like an empty plastic box, but as the previous battery was total overkill to start this engine, I think the capacity in this little one should be plenty, and it sits nicely there on a little battery tray that I've just made that tucks away nicely under the seat.
Some of the future mods then that I've got planned for this tractor are to paint the lot. A full rewire is also probably the next most major job. So I had these, you can see these two little consoles made. So one for controlling lights over here, and one for controlling engines over here. So I need to wire those in as well as all of the rest of the tractor. This will basically enable me to have servo control to electronic control then of the throttle on the tractor engine and also on the mower engine, to start and stop both engines from this control panel, and that's a voltmeter, and in here will be a digital rev counter.
So that's a little bit about my tractor. Stay tuned for loads more content on this. It's going to be the subject of many modifications as I've discussed. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again.